Hello again, Packer fans. Welcome back to the atrium at GreenBayPackerNation.com. Today is Wednesday, September 30th, and Packers fans, I think if you're like me, are not quite sure what to think, even though the Packers have come away with a Sunday victory against the Rams, 36-17, convincing on the scoreboard, yet I don't think Packers fans necessarily are quite convinced that the Packers are who we thought they were. We will talk about that tonight. We will also, of course, talk about the very big, and this is what we're going to talk about the most, the big matchup this coming Monday night on Monday Night Football in front of a national audience against the Minnesota Vikings, led by the now, as if he had won the Super Bowl last season, last second touchdown pass throwing Brett Farve. So we'll get into that. I'm going to give you my take on that game. We'll talk a little bit about what the Packers are going to need to do to come away with a victory. But don't go anywhere. This is the atrium at GreenBayPackerNation.com. Well, the Packers did come away with a big victory against the Rams. The score, convincing on the scoreboard, as I said earlier, 36-17. This was an away game. That is not a bad win at all, but I know if you're like me, you're just not quite convinced. Jackson had too many yards on the ground, and of course, seeing Brandon Chiller get burned for 2 touchdowns was difficult to watch. I do believe, however, and this, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be a little bit informal, but the Rams review it's not going to take long. I'm going to be pretty general about that. We're going to talk a lot about what's coming up against the Vikings. But, you look at the Rams game, and yes, we did score a lot of points. We should have had 3 touchdowns on the board in the first quarter, or the first half, and we didn't do that. There was some execution problems early on. We are still seeing some difficulty and inconsistency with the offensive line, and I think if you're like me, that is going to hurt us down the road. And down the road comes this Monday night. The Packers did pick it up in the second half, but I think you look at the locker room interview that Charles Woodson gave, and he said, listen, this team is nowhere near where we thought we were. This is coming from a consummate professional, a guy who comes to play every day, sort of more than a lunch pail guy, a guy that works every day but is just fantastic at his position, best in the business, and he's saying, hey, we're not where we thought we were. So that is hopefully a goad for improvement, not a Charles Woodson who is down on the team, but a guy who is saying to the rest of the team and Green Bay Packer Nation in general, listen, we are going to improve on a week-by-week basis. That's what we're hoping to see. We know, I think if you watch the game with the eye that I had, yes, the score was big, but there are still some things this team is going to need to improve on. Number 1, the offensive line. We are going to have to protect Aaron Rodgers better. Number 2, Aaron Rodgers is going to have to get rid of the ball quicker. Number 3, on defense, we're going to have to find a way to really limit the running back the way we did Matt Forte in the Chicago game. Even though Jackson did not really have a huge game, he had way too many yards, and the cutback was there too many times that inside, whoever's got gap control on that is going to need to take care of business. We're going to have to make sure and clean up that weaker spot on the point on the back side of those plays. Otherwise, we'll create a wall in the front end, and Adrian Peterson will cut back against us. So that is the setup for the game coming up. This is a good team that we're facing, and like Charles Woodson said when he was talking about the Rams game, hey, we played a team that isn't very good, and we didn't look like we were much better than them. That will not cut it against the Minnesota Vikings. So I want to talk about what we're up against, and I want to talk also about what we have going for us coming into this big Monday night battle against the Minnesota Vikings, which is, it's huge in so many ways. You can talk about, the national spotlight. This is a Monday night football game. You can talk about the fact that Brett Farve is playing in a Vikings uniform against the Green Bay Packers. You can talk about the fact that the Packers need to have this big, they really, in a sense, need to be 3-1 going into the bye week to really feel like you know, they've got a chance of being sort of that kind of elite team that a lot of people thought they were coming out of the preseason and into the regular season. There's so much going on in this game, so much emotion, so much hype is going to be happening. But what are we up against? And I'm going to tell you right now, well, I wouldn't say before training camp, but since training camp, I have had this game on our schedule. In my predictions, I have had it as a loss. Now, let me explain that. It hurt me deeply to say that. I did it more for a philosophical reason that when we play NFC North teams that are good at all, there is a chance for any of them to beat us. Now, let me say as an example, the Detroit Lions beat the Green Bay Packers way too many times just because it was an NFC North rival and they kind of knew us and we kind of took them for granted. So they could be a bad team and they could still beat us. When you talk about what the Chicago Bears did this offseason by signing Cutler and some of the draft picks that they made, they are a better team this year. When you think about the Minnesota Vikings, when they signed Brett Farve, I said from the beginning, whatever the emotion is going into it, the Minnesota Vikings are a better team with Brett Farve behind the center, period. There is no question about it. They are a better team. So, in general, the NFC North had sort of notched itself maybe a half a step up, maybe a step up. And so, philosophically, I guess, to get to my point, I had us splitting with both teams from the NFC North that I thought were any good at all, and that's the Chicago Bears. When we go to play them, I had us losing away. When we played the Minnesota Vikings, I have us losing away. So we go in this week on Monday Night Football to play the Minnesota Vikings, and I am sticking with my prediction that, and I won't even call it what everyone else calls it. I will say that I am predicting that we don't win. Now, the reason for that is that I think they are a better team at quarterback. I don't think quarterback is all that they are. I don't think quarterback is all that they needed. If you look at what the Minnesota Vikings are, they are a run-first team. Adrian Peterson is as good as it gets. They are as good as we will face all season. We did a good job against Matt Forte, but Adrian Peterson is a completely different beast. So they've got that going. When you go match up